The elders called it the Whispering Death. It came every 100 cycles, descending upon whatever settlement had the misfortune of thriving near the old ruins. Emery had heard the stories since childhood, entire villages reduced to husks, people frozen mid-scream with eyes turned to glass, their minds shattered by something the ancients had left behind. Now it was their turn. The detection arrays had picked up the anomaly 3 days ago. A pulsing electromagnetic signature emanating from the crystalline structures half buried in the red soil of Kepler 442b. The colony's xenoarchaeologists had been studying those ruins for 2 years, carefully documenting the extinct civilization that once called this world home. They'd found nothing dangerous, nothing alive that they'd been wrong. Calvin stood at the edge of the quarantine zone, his hazard suit's heads-up display flickering with warnings. Beyond the shimmer of the containment field, he could see the affected colonists, 17 people, including his parents, standing perfectly still, their eyes unfocused, mouths moving soundlessly. The medical team had tried everything. Sedatives, neural dampeners, even induced comas. Nothing worked. The victims remained locked in their waking nightmare, aging by the hour. "The translation is complete," Dr. Yates said, her voice crackling through his helmet speakers. "The inscriptions, they describe it as a mimetic weapon, a cognitive virus designed to target neural patterns. Once it activates, it spreads through anyone who shares similar brain architecture." "How do we stop it?" Calvin demanded. "We don't." Yates' voice was hollow. "According to the texts, the ancients created it during their final war. It was meant to be their ultimate deterrent. The only way to stop it is for someone to accept it fully, to become a willing host. The weapon recognizes surrender and ceases spreading." Calvin's blood ran cold. "That's murder. That's survival. One volunteer, or everyone within 50 kilometers. Those are our options." He found Emery in the observation deck, staring at the crystalline ruins through the reinforced windows. She'd always been fascinated by the ancients, spending her off hours learning their language from the fragments they'd recovered. While other colonists had come to terraform and build, Emery had come to understand. "I'm going to do it," she said before he could speak. No, I've been studying their writing, Calvin. I understand the syntax, the conceptual framework. If anyone has a chance of surviving the integration, it's me." She turned to face him, and he saw the determination in her dark eyes. "Your parents are in there. Mrs. Chen's children. We can't lose them all. We can't lose you." She smiled sadly. "You won't. Not completely." The procedure was simple and horrifying. Emery walked through the containment field in a standard EVA suit, no protection against the mimetic intrusion. Calvin watched from the command center as she approached the nearest victim, his father, and placed her hand on his shoulder. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then Emery collapsed, her body convulsed on the red soil, back arching, fingers clawing at the ground. The monitors went haywire. Her neural activity spiked to levels that should have been lethal, patterns forming and reforming in configurations human brains weren't designed to process. And then, as suddenly as it began, it stopped. Emery stood. The other victims slumped to the ground, unconscious but breathing, their vital signs normalizing. But Emery remained upright, her movements strangely fluid, her head tilted at an angle that seemed just slightly wrong. "Get her into medical," Calvin shouted. They brought her to the isolation ward. She didn't resist, didn't speak, just watched everything with ancient, knowing eyes. For 2 days, Emery remained silent. The medical scans showed impossible things, new neural pathways forming, synaptic connections reorganizing themselves according to patterns that shouldn't exist in human architecture. Dr. Yates called it directed evolution at accelerated speed. Calvin called it a nightmare. On the 3rd day, Emery opened her eyes and spoke. The words that came from her mouth weren't human. They were the clicking, harmonic sounds of the ancient language, but flowing naturally, as if she'd spoken them her entire life. The linguist scrambled to translate. "I remember." The translation program rendered her words. "I remember everything." Calvin was the first to enter her room. Emery sat on the edge of the medical bed, looking simultaneously like his best friend and a complete stranger. He ventured. She turned to him, and when she spoke, it was in English again. "I'm still here, Calvin, but I'm not alone anymore." "What happened to you?" "The weapon wasn't meant to kill," she said slowly, as if pulling words from a deep well. It was a preservation protocol. The ancients knew they were dying. They encoded their consciousness into a mimetic pattern, hoping that someday someone would be compatible enough to carry their memories forward. She stood, moving to the window. They've been waiting for millennia, sleeping in the ruins. And when we started excavating, we woke them up. They're inside you. Their knowledge is. Their language, their history, their science. It's all here. She tapped her temple. They didn't mean to hurt anyone. The incompatibility. Human minds weren't designed to hold this information. But mine adapted. Maybe it was all those hours studying their writing, building those neural pathways. I became a bridge. Over the following weeks, Emery transformed the colony. Speaking in the ancient tongue, which now flowed from her as naturally as breathing. She translated technologies the xenoarchaeologists had misunderstood. Terraforming techniques that could green Kepler 442b in decades instead of centuries. Medical advances that could extend human lifespans. Energy systems that bent the rules of physics as humanity understood them. The other colonists recovered fully, though none remembered their ordeal. They returned to their lives while Emery worked tirelessly with the research teams, serving as a living link between humanity and the extinct civilization. Calvin found her one evening in the archives, surrounded by holographic projections of ancient texts. "Do you regret it?" he asked. Emery looked up, and for a moment, he saw his friend clearly, not the vessel of ancient knowledge, but the girl who'd always chosen to help over self-preservation. "They were so afraid," she said quietly. "Dying alone, forgotten. Now they're not. And we're not alone either. We have guides, teachers, allies in our heads." She smiled. "Humanity always survives, Calvin. We adapt. We endure. Even when it means carrying the memories of the dead." She returned to her work, fingers dancing over the controls, speaking words from a civilization long extinct, but no longer forgotten. And Calvin understood then what humanity, fuck yeah, really meant. It wasn't about being stronger or smarter. It was about being willing to change, to sacrifice, to become something new if that's what survival required. Emery had saved them all. And in doing so, she'd ensured that two species, one living, one dead, would face the universe together.